So now I'm going to map out the nervous system, and this is something you probably want to write out, and I think will help you along the way as we get going through these next chapters. So if we have a brain, so this is my brain, and out of it is the spinal cord. Spinal cord. The brain and the spinal cord is the central nervous system. Okay? That means everything else, everything outside of it is the peripheral nervous system. So anything out here is PNS. Anything here is PNS. So I am going to draw out the sensory part of the nervous system, the sensory part. So sensory part of the nervous system over here, and the motor part on this side. Obviously they're on both sides, but I'm going to do it on either one. So again, this is efferent, same thing, and this is afferent. All right, so looking at the sensory side first. As far as sensory goes, we have certain receptors all over the body that respond to sensory information coming in. Those come from our, senses of sight, smell, hearing, taste, and touch, and then the receptors that are on our organs. So as far as our regular senses and our sense of touch, these are going to be receptors that are in our skin and skeletal muscle and things like that. And those are going to be linked to a neuron. So some dendrites here are going to be linked with receptors here for whatever. And they are going to have they're going to be attached with a neuron that's going to go into the central nervous system. These types of neurons have a certain look to them, which we will talk about later, but they have their cell bodies on them that look a little bit like lollipops. And all of the sensory nerves enter the spinal cord, and their cell bodies are located next to or to the side of the spinal cord. So this thing right here is a ganglion because that's where the cell bodies are. This particular neuron that goes to things like skin, all right, muscles, joints, things like that, we call that somatic sensory. So somatic sensory, or SS. All right, these types of neurons are going to be voluntary. Meaning that they are conscious. When you feel something, you know about it. Okay? All right, there are also receptors that are associated with our organs. Okay, so they also have certain types of receptors on them, and they send information through a sensory nerve into the cord. Again, it's going to have its little lollipop cell body, all right? And the difference with these is this is called a visceral sensory neuron. So visceral sensory, or VS. This type of neuron is involuntary. You don't have any control and you don't have any consciousness of things that are going on within your internal organs. They're just doing their thing. Okay, so those are the two types of sensory neurons that we have, and the information that's coming. That's the whole sensory system. Okay, it is peripheral because these are neurons that are in the periphery of the body. On the other side, I'm going to put motor neurons. So these are the neurons that are providing responses. So the first type is going to be that motor neuron. So this is a motor neuron that's going to innervate skeletal muscle. The cell body's over here. It's in the spinal cord. Okay. And it's going to send off some kind of neurotransmitter here that will innervate the skeletal muscle. Okay, we know that this is the neuromuscular junction, so that's going to be acetylcholine and all that. This is called somatic motor. Somatic motor is voluntary because it's skeletal muscle. You consciously control your skeletal muscle. So that's somatic. Your organs also have motor neurons associated with them. So the first one, putting here, looks like that. And the second one looks like this. And you can see that one of the differences here between the skeletal muscle motor neurons and the ones going to your organs is that they are a 2-neuron pathway. Here's a neuron, here's a neuron, here's a neuron, here's a neuron. They still start in the spinal cord and then go out. So this area here, let's make this color. This area here and here is a ganglion, because this is where these cell bodies are. Over here would be a nucleus because it's within the central nervous system. Okay, so these 2 neurons make up something called the autonomic nervous system, the ANS. So the ANS is the autonomic nervous system, and they innervate organs. Organs, so glands, your heart, your spleen, things like that. And these are, it's autonomic because you don't have to think about it. It's involuntary. Okay, so these 2 things, the autonomic nervous system provides visceral motor. And the autonomic nervous system does this in 2 ways. There are 2 branches of that. So the first branch is this one up here, is called the sympathetic nervous system. And the one at the bottom is called the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic and the parasympathetic is the nervous system that will innervate your viscera, your organs, motor-wise. Okay? There is an extra organ in here that I want to point out. There's another neuron, just like it's a sympathetic neuron, just like the one above it. Looks exactly like it, like this. But instead of going to another neuron to go to an organ, it actually goes to a specific organ. This organ is called the adrenal gland. And inside the adrenal gland is an area that has nervous tissue. And when it is innervated, and it will be by this neuron, it will take a substance called epinephrine, and it will deposit it into the blood. Epinephrine is the neurotransmitter that is located here, and here it goes into the blood. Okay, so that's about enough for that, and we will expand on that, but this is a good thing to draw out that will help you understand the difference between the sensory and the motor and the different nervous systems that are encompassed in our whole, or our nervous system as a whole.